Hi, I'm Pan-tastic. Welcome to Bell Let's Talk. So one of the reasons I wanted to do this Bell Let's Talk was because I actually suffer from depression myself. And I started this podcast, The Fourth Wall, as part of my own personal therapy. Depression thrives in silence, and I'm choosing to talk and share my journey because talking helps break down the barriers that mental illness can create in my own personal life. So I'm going to start. I apologize for the pauses. I'm trying to find my bearing. I'll take a second to talk about the Bell Let's Talk Day campaign. So part of that is breaking down the barriers to mental health. Another part of what Bell Let's Talk does, they've got some social media stuff that they'll donate a certain percentage to this community fund that they have. So charities that meet the criteria with the mental health programs that they want to facilitate can apply to this community fund, and they can get funding to do some work in the community. And I feel that that's really important. So they've done some things with youth shelters. You can go on their website and see all the charities that they've helped across Canada. There's been, I think, 4 or 5 in the last year that were specifically Nova Scotia, which is where I am. So I'm glad when things go back into the community that I am part of. So I'm going to start by talking about what mental health is. So mental health involves balance of the aspects of your life, which are physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. So it's an ability to enjoy your life and deal with the everyday challenges that can involve your ability to make decisions and choices, adapting and coping. I just lost my page. Bear with me for a moment. Adapting and coping with difficult situations. Talking about your needs and desires. Maintaining meaningful relationships. So your mental health is in a good place when you have a balance of these aspects of your life. In mental illness, I guess that can be described as an imbalance of these aspects of your life. But mental illness, so everyone feels sad, worried, scared, suspicious. Everyone has these feelings at some point in their life. When these feelings get in the way of your daily life, so when these feelings and problems get in the way of being able to keep a balance in your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual aspects of your life over a long period of time, that's when it can be a significant indicator that you could be suffering from a mental illness. So when there's changes as well in a person's thinking, mood, or behavior, and these changes cause distress and make it difficult to do the daily tasks, that person may have a mental illness. This is a really broad strokes approach, but part of the goal of this PowerPoint in particular is to break down some of the stigma that we have so that we can start conversations with people and give people a safe place where they feel like they can start to share and get help if they need it. So the reflective question here is, how do you find balance in your life? So you can think about what finding balance means to you. I don't think we have anyone in the live chat right now. I lost my live chat page. Is anyone here? No one's here. Okay. I can just go ahead and say whatever I want. Nobody's here. I can edit it. Just before this, I did 20 minutes of this, not realizing I actually was not broadcasting. So, good on me to only take 20 minutes to figure out I was not actually sending anything out to the internet. We're editing that part out. Okay, so think about what finding balance means to you. Just reflect on that. Write down a notebook if you're feeling so obliged. So good mental health is being in a place where making these decisions, adapting to difficult situations, addressing and taking care of your needs, maintaining meaningful relationships aren't hindered. You're doing okay. You're not having trouble finding, I think everyone has finding some balance, but it's not hindering your daily life. When it starts to hinder your daily life, that's when you've got a problem. So, okay, I'm making funny noises. When there's changes in a person's thinking, mood, or behavior, and these changes cause distress. I already read that. Okay. My apologies. 1 in 5 Canadians will experience a form of mental illness at some point in their lives. So we have a true or false activity. I'm not sure. Okay. I need to find the true or false activity so I can go over it. True or false questionnaire. Here we go. So I'm going to read through some of the questions, and if you're listening later on, you can take out a little notebook or even think whether or not you think these are true or false. And I need to find the answer sheet. Which does not want to show up, of course. Oh, here we go. Okay. I'm totally prepared. Alright. True or false? In any given week, at least 500,000 employed Canadians are unable to work because of mental health problems. This is true. Of the 500,000 people off work at any given week due to mental health problems, there are 355,000 disability cases due to mental and/or behavioral disorders, plus approximately 175,000 full-time workers absent from work due to mental illness. Canadians in the lowest income group are twice as likely as those in the highest income group. Canadians in the lowest income group are twice as likely as those in the highest income group to report fair to poor mental health. False. Canadians in the lowest income group are 3 to 4 times more likely than those in the highest income groups to report fair to poor mental health. People with mental illness have a tendency to be violent. This is false. The Canadian Mental Health Association reports that as a group, people with mental health issues are not more violent than any other group in our society. The majority of crimes are not committed by people with psychiatric illness, and multiple studies have proven there is very little relationship between most of these diseases and violence. The real issue is the fact that people with mental illness are 2.5 to 4 times more likely to become the victims of violence than any other group in our society. Across the world, 75% of those with mental illness won't receive any treatment at all. This is true. For more information, see Mental Illness and Addictions in Canada from the Mood Disorder Society of Canada. These resources that I'm reading from, by the way, there's a link in the description below where you can get all of these handouts that go with this PowerPoint presentation. Mental illness is the 10th leading cause of disability and premature death in Canada. False. Mental illness is the 2nd leading cause of disability and premature death in Canada. Just 50% of Canadians would tell friends or coworkers that they have a family member with mental illness. True. Just 50% of Canadians would tell friends or coworkers that they have a family member with a mental illness, compared to 72% who would discuss a diagnosis of cancer, and 68% who would talk about a family member having diabetes. The disease burden of mental illness is 1.5 times higher than all other. The disease burden of mental illness is 1.5 times higher than all cancers put together. This is true. This includes years lived with less than full function and years lost to early death. Mental illness is the sign of a weak character. False. Statements like this seem to suggest that it is a person's own fault if he or she develops a mental illness. While the cause of most mental disorders is not yet known, research shows that it is likely a mix of factors. In 2008, 46% of Canadians thought people used the term mental illness as an excuse for bad behavior. This is true. 27% said they would be fearful of being around someone who suffered from a serious mental illness. In a survey of 556 UK respondents, 70% reported that either they or a family member had experienced stigma as a result of mental illness. This is true. People experience stigma within their own family, 56%, from friends, 52%, from their doctor, 44%, from other healthcare professionals, 32%, and at work, 30%. We've talked about some myths and facts about mental health and mental illness. Now it's time to answer the question, who is affected by mental illness? In any given year, 1 in 5 Canadians will experience a form of mental illness. Even if you've not experienced mental illness, chances are someone close to you has or will have a mental illness at some point. So with this package, there's another handout, which I did not make an image of. I'm just going to run down. So it's a list of names. Ludwig van Beethoven. My mother, Clara Hughes, your cousin. Elizabeth Manley. My son, Emily Carr. My partner, Rex Harrington. My coworker, Winston Churchill, your friend. Ted Turner. My sister, Buzz Aldrin. Virginia Woolf, my aunt. My daughter, Aretha Franklin. Margaret Trudeau. Your father, you, Abraham Lincoln. My neighbor, Mike Wallace. Us, Catherine Zeta-Jones. Your brother, Tennessee Williams. My grandson, Patty Duke. My niece, Amy Skye. Demi Lovato. Me. So from this list, choose 3 people. And then think about what 3 things that they have in common. All the famous people that are listed on that I've just read off have or have had a mental illness. Chances are the others, like your sister, your friend, may have also experienced a mental illness. Mental illness affects people of any age, social class, race, culture, including famous people such as Clara Hughes, Buzz Aldrin, Abraham Lincoln, Beethoven, and other celebrities that are on this list. Most of all, the person who wears the label of mental illness is someone's mother, someone's father, daughter, or son. Someone with strengths and talents and wisdom. Keep in mind that list of people who wear that label as we continue the conversation. Think about how being labeled with a mental illness may have affected their lives. Now I'm going to read you a story, and then we'll talk about it. On ordinary streets, there's a disaster waiting to happen. There's a group of people among us who pose a threat to their neighbors, and indeed to the whole community. Too often their potentially dangerous behavior is ignored, until it is too late. The public is angry with the alarming number of incidences in which blonde people injure or kill innocent people. Hardly a day goes by without news of a murder or attack by a blonde person, leading many to question, why are they allowed to live freely in the community? Even as some critics claim, it's only a small minority causing the problem. It's not always possible to know which blonde people are dangerous. We must put the rights of the community first and keep blonde people in secure but humane institutions for their own good, as well as ours. Suppose the general public had this negative idea about blonde people. If you were a blonde person, how would you feel? How would people react to you? This is how stigma works. Stigma is the attitude and discrimination. Stigma means thinking less of a person because of his or her condition. Stigma can make people feel unwanted and ashamed for something that's not their choice or fault. Here are what some family members of people with mental health and substance use problems have said about stigma. Comes to mind when I think of stigma? My immediate thought is fear of exposure. Fear of people's reactions. You're very fearful of a change in people's attitudes toward you or toward your family member who's ill. And whatever affects that consumer affects the family. I guess this has to do with stigma. That you close out people you could have counted on. People you really need. You end up closing them out only because of the stigma. Not because you don't trust them. It's just the stigma. And the risk is huge. So you're closing all the doors. You close doors to any support. Stigma adds to the suffering caused by mental illness. The World Health Organization calls stigma the hidden burden of mental illness. Stigma can seriously affect the well-being of those who experience it, affect people while they are ill, while they are in treatment, while they're healing, and long after they've recovered. Stop people from seeking treatment, damage how people feel about themselves and how others see them. Here are some ways we can help get rid of stigma and treat everyone with respect. Treating people with respect is about treating people in a way they consider respectful. Be warm, caring, not judgmental. If you approach every interaction you have with warmth and caring, you'll help to create an environment where distress is less likely. If something does come up, people around you will feel supported and are more likely to share their difficulties. Challenge stigma when you see it. Here's what one family member said about challenging stigma. You can't let negative people get to you. You just have to put on a suit of armor and you can face it. Stigma's everywhere. Running away won't make it any better, for you or for your family. You have to be tough with things like this. I don't experience stigma at all. I refuse to. If people have bad attitudes toward my husband's depression, I try to educate them. If they won't hear what I have to say, forget them. I don't waste time on people like that. Watch your language. It's important to remember to put the person first. So respectful language would be using a term like person with schizophrenia, person with bipolar disorder, person with a disability, or person that lives with schizophrenia, person that lives with bipolar disorder, person that lives with a disability, rather than schizophrenic, manic depressive, handicapped person. Empowering language, person with a mental illness, is a better choice than disempowering language. Mentally ill, victim, sufferer, crazy, wacko, lunatic. Put the person first. Become informed about mental illness. Speak up about stigma. Talk openly about mental illness. Don't refer to people by their illness. Don't be judgmental. Don't let jokes or misinformation go by without being challenged. Treat mental illness as something. Don't treat mental illness as something to be embarrassed about. Terms to avoid. Challenged. Special. Normal, not normal. Psycho, psychopath, or demented. You could probably think of many other words, terms, and ways that mental illness is discussed in your daily life that can be challenged and changed to be more respectful. Learn facts about mental health and mental illness at www.cmh.ca. Many people think mental illness makes people violent, as we learned with our true and false questionnaire. A person with mental illness is more likely to be the victim of violence than a perpetrator. In a 2001 study, researchers calculated 3% of violent offenses could be attributed to mental illness, and another 7% to substance abuse. Can you imagine leaving your home every day knowing that this is what people think about you? Society attributes negative language to people based on race, gender, sexual orientation, disability, immigration status, religion, and so on. All these labels suggest that somehow a person is abnormal. When we think of all of the layers of stigma society's created, it can make us wonder if anyone actually falls into the category of normal, especially when we consider that all of us are affected by mental illness either directly or indirectly. Even though mental health problems affect all of us, only a third of people who need help seek it. Why? What stops people from seeking help? Services often don't exist nearby. They may not know what kind of help is available. They may not know what help exists. They may know what help exists, but not be able to use the services because of barriers such as poverty. Many services aren't covered under provincial health insurance. Neither are transportation costs. Services are almost always provided in English or French, making it inaccessible to people who may speak other languages. People may feel embarrassed, ashamed, judged, or afraid due to stigma. Stigma makes it difficult for people with mental illness to access physical health care. People's beliefs, actions, and opinions are considered to be due to mental illness and may be discounted. Discrimination against people with mental illness means it may be difficult for people to find or keep work, housing, or relationships if they admit to a mental health problem. Many people don't recognize that they have a problem. What can we do to start a one-on-one conversation? One in 5 people will have a mental health problem at some point in their lives. Because of stigma, many don't seek treatment or support. You don't need to be a mental health expert to help someone in distress. You don't need to be a mental health expert to help someone in distress. Ask how the person is doing. Be specific about what you've noticed that concerns you. It seems like you've been losing weight, becoming more withdrawn. Is everything okay? Do you want to talk? Even if your friend doesn't want to talk, knowing that you care can help them feel less alone. If you've struggled with feelings that your friend might identify with, such as feeling hopeless or worried all the time, you could tell them how you felt and how you coped with those feelings in the past. Offer support. Be compassionate. Comments like "just relax" or "you'll get over it" can come across as judgmental. Show your friends you're there to offer support. Suggest going for dinner or a coffee if this is the kind of thing you would normally do together. Or ask what they would like to do instead. Have the kinds of conversations you usually have with them. People don't want to feel judged for understandable signs of distress. Nor do they want to be defined by a mental health problem if that's what they are experiencing. The kind of help a person needs depends on the type and severity of their problem. I'm worried about you. You're concerned about how anxious and withdrawn someone is. The fact that they're barely sleeping and missing meals only makes the problem worse. I'm worried about you. Have you thought of what kind of supports might help right now? If your friend does suggest that their distress might be mental health related, you could ask them if they have a doctor or a community or spiritual advisor. You could ask them if they have a doctor or a community advisor they could speak to, or counseling service. If they don't believe there's a problem, don't argue with them about it. Don't try to suggest possible solutions. Just keep checking in. See how they're doing. Get together more often if that's what they want. You need help now. They describe feeling hopeless and arrive at work looking disheveled or distracted. I really don't think this issue can wait. Do you have a doctor or someone else you can call? Even if your friend doesn't want or feel the need to get help, stay supportive. Offer to go to an appointment with them. Ask them if there's someone else they feel more comfortable with, they could connect with in the next couple of days to see how they're doing. It's an emergency. They're talking about killing themselves, describing ways that they could do it. Will you let me take you to a nearby emergency department? Is there someone else close that can take you? If they refuse help and won't let you or someone else accompany them to seek professional help, call 911. Ensure their safety. It's important they not be left alone. If they are not willing to stay in the company of another person, call 911 to assure immediate help. What does a mental health problem look like? We all feel sad, worried, scared, and suspicious at times. These kinds of feelings may become a problem if they get in the way of our daily activities over a long period of time. These kinds of problems can affect anyone regardless of their age, educational background, income level, gender, or culture. Mental health problems can affect our feelings, our thoughts, and our physical well-being and our actions. These signs may be visible or invisible. This is what you may observe in someone with a mental health problem. Feeling sad or irritable for more than 2 weeks. Having excessive worries, fears, and anxieties. Having extreme mood swings from feeling really high to feeling really low. Feeling apathetic or disinterested in things. Feeling hopeless or desperate. Crying a lot. Feeling really angry. Having distorted or confused thoughts. Having strange beliefs not based in reality, or hearing, seeing, or smelling things that aren't there. Having difficulty remembering things and concentrating, which affects work or studies. Making poor decisions. Drinking or using other drugs excessively. Seeming agitated and restless and appearing disheveled. Withdrawing from activities and friends. Crying a lot. Having mainly physical complaints, such as headaches or stomach aches, with no clear cause. Having difficulty sleeping. Having significant changes in eating. Talking about killing or harming themselves. Your coworker's been really irritable. They've been yelling at colleagues. They've been seen storming out of people's offices. Colleagues are uncomfortable with these sudden outbursts. Here are some suggestions on how to reach out and support someone you are concerned about. Start talking. Having a conversation is the best way to start breaking down barriers. Be compassionate. If your coworker's behavior is out of character, it may signify a mental health problem, or the person is under some kind of stress. Offer to go for coffee or dinner if that is the kind of thing you normally do together. Ask your coworker what they might like to do. Have the kinds of conversations you are used to having together. If you do go out together or just choose to stay in and chat in one of your offices, try to find a relaxed time when you know you won't be interrupted. When you're together, listen. Let them tell you about When you're together, listen to them tell you about how they're doing, without jumping in to give advice or problem solve or try to diagnose. Talk about the effects of their behavior without lecturing. Stay on side. If they feel you're doing this because you care and you are trying to act in their best interests, it is more likely you'll be able to help. The kind of help your coworker may need depends on the severity of their problem. If you're concerned about your coworker and their behavior is very uncharacteristic, if they believe there's a problem, you could say, "I'm worried about you. What's going on? Have you thought of what kind of supports might help?" Depending on the type of problem they describe, support could range from an employment assistance program to help around tenant rights. If they don't believe there's a problem, don't argue. Don't try to suggest possible solutions. Keep checking in, see how they're doing. Go for coffee more often if that's something you would normally do together. Their behavior has gotten worse. They're speaking rapidly, not leaving work until late at night. Angry outbursts are getting more frequent. Your boss has threatened disciplinary action. I really don't think this issue can wait. Do you have someone you can call who could support you? Someone you could call right now? Even if your colleague doesn't want or feel the need to get help, stay supportive. Ask them if you or someone else they feel comfortable with could connect with them in the next couple of days to see how they're doing. They're talking about killing themselves and describing ways they could do it. Would you let me accompany you to a nearby emergency department, or is there someone else you would feel more comfortable going with? If they refuse help, won't let you or someone else accompany them, seek professional help. Call 911 to ensure their safety. It's important they not be left alone. If they're not willing to stay in the company of another person, call 911 to ensure immediate help. Thanks for taking the time to listen and be part of this conversation. I hope this gave you some tools to start checking in with coworkers and friends, family members. These conversations are really important. I suffer from depression. I can have thoughts and feelings that I don't share. One of the reasons I started this podcast was to break that habit, and to talk. So I've committed to putting something out there once a week, purely for my own mental health. If that can help someone else, that's even better. I recorded this, so I'll edit it and have it available later as well, not just on this live feed, because I think that no one's here. No one's here. So I'm going to record this and put it out so people can listen to it. Wednesday afternoon probably isn't the best time for people anyway. I want to thank you for being part of this conversation. I hope that some of these tools are valuable for you. It's very important that we check in with the people we care about and that we let those people know that we care about them. Mental illness can live under the surface. As someone who lives with mental illness, it's really easy to walk through the world looking like I don't, looking like I have things put together. It's important to have a team around you, to people around you that you trust. I encourage you, if you are having issues with mental health or you feel like you may have a mental illness, that you find a doctor or counselor that you can see. If you are employed, look into your employee assistance program. Some of those are fantastic. gives you a little help. Can range everything, not just mental health. There's lots of areas of your life that you can get help with your EAP program at work. If you have one, if you're lucky enough to have access to that. I live in Nova Scotia. Access to mental health in Nova Scotia is a big problem right now. Talk to your primary healthcare provider. Talk to your family doctor. If you are lucky enough to have one in this province, we have a big problem with the ratio of people we have in this province to the doctors we have access to. I think there's still a great number of Nova Scotians that don't have access to a family doctor. There are some walk-in clinics around. You can go in and talk to them. If you are having suicidal ideology or suicidal thoughts, go to your emergency room, call 911. That's life-threatening. It's really important that you get help. If you know people who don't have access to the internet, don't have access to any of these resources, I hope you take these tools and connect with them, check in with them. Homelessness is a big issue for people who have mental health problems. Having a mental health problem, the lack of access we have right now, we've got lots of doctors retiring, we don't have enough coming in. We've got lots of people in this province, probably throughout the country. This is not just a localized problem. We've got many of our doctors in this country are boomers and they're retiring. It's just the way it is. We don't have enough people coming in to fill those spots. So if you have people, check in with them. Again, I've got some stuff on cognitive behavioral therapy. It's best if you can do that with a psychologist. If you don't have access to a psychologist, you don't have access to a doctor, you know that you're struggling with negative thoughts, take a look at my cognitive distortions video and thought diary video. Those tools can at least get you started if you aren't in a position to be able to get care. We have universal health care, but unfortunately, that doesn't cover psychologists and psychiatrists unless you're in an inpatient unit, which in this province, I know in where I am, our inpatient unit was closed a few years ago, hasn't been replaced. The entire healthcare system got amalgamated under this government. It's a mess. Healthcare is a mess. It's not being handled properly. I feel that the reason we're having a lot of problems with mental illness is because the ball was dropped a while ago and those supports aren't there. I'm a big advocate of teaching our children tools about mental health in general. Teaching our kids how to check in with each other. Teaching our kids how to come to us when things are a problem. I've had my own children come to me to discuss friends that are cutting, friends that are in bad situations, friends that are in bad places mentally. I am lucky enough to be someone who has a bachelor degree in psychology, which has helped my parenting more than I could tell you. It has directed my parenting in a way that I am lucky enough that I have a 14-year-old child that feels comfortable to come to me with their struggles and with their friends' struggles, and I can help give them tools. Keep talking. Keep talking. Check in with each other. Let people know you care. Let people know you care about them. It's really important to be treating people with compassion. I think compassion can go a long way. If someone feels safe, they'll share. And if they share something that indicates they have a mental health problem, or maybe suffering from a mental illness, knowing that you care, having trusted you, sharing with you, you can help. You can go back and help them find resources. Right now, even though there isn't an inpatient unit in our area, our mental health outpatient program is not always easy to get into. But if you talk to your family doctor, or if you go to a walk-in clinic or emergency and talk to them about a mental health problem and ask to be referred to the mental health department, you have a good chance of getting some resources, even if it isn't inpatient. Again, I thank you. I'm going to wrap this up because I've been chatting for a while and I actually have to go to work tonight. So I'll give this an edit, probably put it up tomorrow. Thank you very much for taking part in the conversation. Hello, Nietzsche's mustache. I'm just wrapping up. But hi, I appreciate you being here. I was just going to close out. Did you have a question? I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to give you like really boring dead air. Thanks for finding my channel. That's awesome. I've got some other videos there you can check out. I'm probably going to edit this tonight and put it back out there so you can listen. Some really good content in here. And actually, if you look in the description below, there's resources to everything that I had just gone through. So you can actually peruse those on your own. And I'm going to have to check out your channel when I get a chance. But I am going to have to wrap up and take off because I do have to get ready to go to my job. But I really appreciate you coming by. That's awesome. Take a peek around, look at my other videos, and thanks. I'm signing off. Thanks for stopping by.